Welcome to the war on the First Amendment. As you may have heard, in fact, there's an actual plan and a strategy to sort of eliminate First Amendment liberties and freedom of speech in this country. It's being done both through judicial rogue actions, but also being threatened by Supreme Court justices. What does that mean? What does that entail? That entails things like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas saying that the famous New York Times versus Sullivan case should be scrapped, and that in fact no longer should the ordinary person be protected, or any member of the independent press be protected from questioning even public figures. Additionally to that, you have judges like the judge in the Roger Stone case make the determination that Roger Stone cannot even defend himself in his own criminal case against even libels and defamation. So you have, and all of it is built on a system, a legal system, a political system, a social, cultural media system that is designed to get you to feel self-defeated. If they can get Roger Stone silenced, if they can have a Supreme Court justice say you no longer have the freedom of speech in the independent press to challenge any major public figure, then the ordinary person will feel powerless, will feel weak. And they create this and they sort of enable it by the way in which they have even hiring practices at major media institutions. So you have social and cultural and media control using the political and legal system to suppress and oppress speech through censorship and shame campaigns that are enabling big tech, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, others, to do things like completely remove Raheem Kassam from his Facebook presence, the former Breitbart London editor, to silence Tommy Robinson right on the eve of the BBC doing a defamation hit piece against him, being able to completely silence Roger Stone so that if he even says a word in his own defense, he goes to prison. Not only that, he was silenced from saying two words, Robert Mueller. Why is that? Why is it Roger Stone can't talk about Robert Mueller outside of the context of his own case? Why? Because the judge decided just to violate the rights, because there is a war on the First Amendment in the United States. Not just a war on your constitutional liberties in other contexts, not just an attempt to strip the Second Amendment rights that has been explicitly and expressly stated, but an intentional effort to make and remove the First Amendment from your protection. So you have Justice Clarence Thomas calls for reconsideration of landmark case. And what was that landmark case? What was that case about? So what happened was there was people were using and doing political advertising in the New York Times calling for civil rights protests back in the segregation era South. That's what led to New York Times versus Sullivan. The case really wasn't about the New York Times. It was because the New York Times simply printed a political ad that ordinary people put together. And so the question was, could these people use the New York Times, use the media, use the press to get out their ideas to protect civil rights and civil liberties? Well, what happened was they sued in the South, got a crazy judgment that today would be worth millions and millions of dollars, that would have completely silenced and suppressed the ability of the civil rights movement to speak on its own behalf in the press, to use the press to reach out. So that was the foundational case that the Supreme Court is now talking about getting rid of, talking about eliminating, talking about ending. It was a case of ordinary people using the press, using their access to the press to share civil rights ideas and ideals for engagement and activism in Alabama during the segregation era South. And then it was a corrupted Alabama judicial system, a judicial system that illegally and unconstitutionally denied and deprived people of their rights to participate in the jury, of their rights to participate also in grand juries and rights to vote and rights to even sit at the sit at the counter table at the diner. But it was particularly pernicious in the legal system. So they were able to sue the people who simply brought this claim, put the advertising with the New York Times, add the New York Times as a party, and get an absurd judgment that was meant to deter, scare, and terrify people from exposing the truth through the public press and through your exercise of the freedom of speech. If you exercised your speech, you would be bankrupt. Just like with Roger Stone, if you exercise your speech, you go to prison. These messages are coming out for a reason. These messages are coming out for a purpose. And they have a common pattern, a common scheme, a common system, a common mechanism, and that is to eliminate your First Amendment freedom. The goal isn't to eliminate the First Amendment freedom of the establishment press, of the most powerful press. Because again, the New York Times versus Sullivan case was about some ordinary people putting an ad in the New York Times, not about the reporting of the New York Times. New York Times versus Sullivan was about ordinary people's ability to access the press, ordinary people's ability to challenge the system, ordinary people's ability to express themselves and use the press to do so. So this censorship campaign corresponds and correlates to what happened in the Roger Stone case, what's happening in big tech, what's happening in China, what's happening in other countries where this model is being employed and utilized on a routine basis, where defamation is actually lawfare. So ordinary people can now be sued for defamation. The independent press can now be sued for defamation if this legal standard goes forward without being protected in the way the big institutional press is protected. And so that's what's happening, a discriminatory double standard system whereby your First Amendment rights are gone. And the only people who have First Amendment rights are the establishment institutional press. You, the ordinary person, don't have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of communication, freedom of expression, freedom of public participation, or if you do, you can either go bankrupt, like would have happened in Sullivan, or you go to prison, like what's been threatened in Roger Stone. Up next, we'll talk about the Roger Stone case in the context of the First Amendment and how this is part of an ongoing pattern, ongoing campaign to deny and deprive people of their First Amendment rights and to effectively eliminate the First Amendment for ordinary people and the independent press in America.
Now, I'm so excited about this because they taste so good, they're so great, they're such high quality. And I can't wait to hear them try to demonize that we're selling high quality infused protein bars. We went to, again, 3 of the top manufacturers in the country. We said we want to up the protein level, up the quality, even though you're already top of the line, and we're going to lower the price. At regular price in the packs of 12, it's $3. 15 grams of protein and so much more. These are super high quality, no fillers, nothing. But under the discount we've got going, it's 40% off when you get 2 boxes instead of 25% off. It's like $2.40. Everybody's like running around the office since these came in about 2 weeks ago. We're launching them today, and they're like, this is the best protein bar I've ever tasted. They taste better than candy bars. Your body's like, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is how you fund the InfoWar. Instead of going and paying more for bars that aren't even as good in many cases, at Whole Foods or wherever, you get the highest quality, you get a discount, and you fund the resistance. It's a total 360 win. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. We did focus groups for the first time ever. I mean, this is what everybody said was their favorite. Tastes great, super healthy, super amazing. Get your InfoWars Life protein bars today at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Now the media will say protein and food is evil in the snake oil. But you get 12 bars, 15 grams of protein each one. Vanilla coconut is my favorite. We have the other right here as well. InfoWars Live protein bar, peanut butter and chocolate. This is a high-end protein bar of the highest quality at InfoWarsLife.com for about half the price of major competitors, and then your funding supports the InfoWar, a total 360 win.
I'm Robert Barnes, constitutional lawyer, civil trial lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, a lawyer for the underdog against those who would bully them, against those who would deprive them and deny them of their basic rights and freedoms and liberties, and have been representing underdogs against powerful institutional and entrenched interests for the better part of 20 years. In this case, and what we're talking about here, is the war on the First Amendment, the attempt to take away your First Amendment freedoms and liberties and deprive you of those rights and liberties that were secured by our founders more than 200 years ago, including people named Barnes back in Rhode Island at the turn of the 18th century. In this context, let's talk about the Roger Stone case. So in Roger Stone's case, what you have is someone who's been criminally accused. And a criminally accused person has multiple constitutional rights that are implicated by their right to speech. The primary one is the First Amendment right of speech, but it's not the only one. You have a Fourth Amendment right to protect your privacy and to respond to those who would invade your privacy with lies and libels connected to your case. You have a Fifth Amendment right to due process of law that protects you from anybody that's out there that's saying false things about you, that's leading you in your case to lead people to believe you're guilty when in fact you're innocent. The presumption of innocence is in fact rooted in the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, which is best protected by your ability to publicly express and publicly participate in the debate about your innocence. Next is the Sixth Amendment right, which is that is your right to counsel of your choice, the right to effective representation, which must include the ability for your lawyer to publicly speak on your behalf. This was established many decades ago in a case called Gideon versus Nevada. What happened there was a defense lawyer went out and said, my client's innocent and the cops are corrupt. What happened? Well, all of a sudden the Nevada State Bar wanted to punish him for asserting corruption in the government in defense of his client. The United States Supreme Court determined that in fact he had a constitutionally protected right and a constitutionally protected obligation to speak on behalf of his client. His client is the one whose rights were at issue. His First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights, and Sixth Amendment rights. But in the Roger Stone context, it goes a step further. This is when you get into the Eighth Amendment right. We have an Eighth Amendment right against excessive bail. That was established many centuries ago and is part of the Magna Carta, which you can see in various libraries around the world in its 12th century language. And there, the problem was that how bail used to work, what a word surety used to mean, is that somebody would bail for you. So let's say you were accused of a crime. Your neighbor, your friend, your family member, your close loved one, someone else would step in and say, if this person doesn't show up and serve their sentence if they're convicted and doesn't show up for the trial, then I will go in their place. I will do their sentence. And this is where the word surety originally arose. This was the original bail construct. But what was happening is locally corrupt sheriffs were misusing and abusing the criminal judicial process to get people to give them large sums of money in lieu of an appropriate bail process for actual charges of actual crimes. So that's why we have created a provision against excessive bail that dates back to the foundational liberties of the Magna Carta itself. That's reflected in our U.S. Constitution in the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution, passed in the very first Congress because it was the way in which the constitutional government came to form, was that they promised they would pass a Bill of Rights, which included 10 amendments, and those 10 amendments included the Eighth Amendment, which is a right against excessive bail, not just cruel and unusual punishment, but also against excessive bail when you are presumed innocent. So in Roger Stone's case, the judge not only violated his First Amendment rights, violated his Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment rights by saying that he could not talk in his own defense. He could not even voice a public lie or libel. He could not establish his reputation at the very time it is being tarnished and destroyed by the existence of the criminal case. But she went further and said that if he actually violated her gag order in any way, shape, or form, if somebody even spoke on his behalf and she considered it his fault that they did so, that's why Alex Jones and InfoWars were even targeted, then Roger would go to jail. This is in fact, that's right, if he exercised his First Amendment right of speech, his Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment rights to defend himself in the public arena against criminal charges that are destroying and wrecking his reputation, then he goes to prison. Well, that's a violation of Roger Stone's Eighth Amendment rights. That's how many constitutional rights they were willing to violate just to strip him of his First Amendment freedoms. There's a reason why the First Amendment is the First Amendment there. It is the foundational amendment that secures all of the other liberties. There's also, it's not a coincidence that the Second Amendment is right after it because it helps secure the First Amendment. So the whole point and purpose of all of these amendments is these rights and remedies only exist if the freedom to speak exists. If the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the freedom of public participation, the freedom of and the liberty to communicate, even question judges. One of the things that the judge raised in the case is she implied that there's something inherently bad about questioning a federal judge in a criminal case that is a high-profile political matter. Well, who's going to expose judicial corruption if lawyers aren't the ones who do so? If the people participating in the case are allowed to even talk about it? Yet that is in fact what the judge did. The judge said that Roger and his lawyers are effectively banned and prohibited from talking about the judge. Even if the judge was appointed in a highly peculiar manner, even if the judge came to preside over the case in a highly unusual manner, even if the judge is issuing rulings that blatantly violate rights that have never been issued before in the history of our legal jurisprudence. Judge Jackson's order against Roger Stone is an order without legal precedence and an order without legal justification. We need lawyers and advocates and participants saying precisely that. Because if judges can remove and revoke a person's First Amendment rights, a person's First Amendment liberties, then no one is safe, because they will continue to do so and create law cases for the sole and whole excuse to try to silence and shut up individuals from speaking publicly. Much as the libel cases that have been brought against Alex Jones and InfoWars appear to be intended by various political and media actors to silence Alex Jones, to censor Alex Jones, to censor and shame the very independent media and press that helped elect the revolutionary presidency of Donald Trump. This is part of a broader pattern. So when you see a Supreme Court justice saying, let's take away the First Amendment, when you see a criminal defendant not allowed to defend himself in the public arena like Roger Stone, and when you see Alex Jones and InfoWars being targeted by lawsuits meant to silence and shame and censor them, then you understand it's part of a coordinated strategy to end the First Amendment for your rights and liberties in America. Up next, we'll discuss what's happening and how they're trying to induce a mindset of defeat, how trying to get people to recognize or fear their own ability to express themselves. As was established long ago, the best form of censorship is self-censorship. So how do you get people to not speak up for themselves? How do you get people to not participate and not support those who are bringing independent, dissident voices into the public arena? That next.
By leaps and by bounds, the #1 best-selling supplement family in the world is energy drinks and energy supplements. But they are riddled with dyes and toxins and synthetic caffeines and other chemicals that sure get you a quick boost but burn out in just a few hours and have terrible side effects. We have developed, hands down from our research, the most powerful, healthy energy drink, pre-workout and beyond system in the world. There's nothing else like it. You must experience it. It is a total game changer, and it comes in easy to use packets to mix in with fruit juice or water, whatever you like. Warning though, it's very, very strong. It lasts up to 10 hours, so take a half packet the first time you take it, because Turbo Force is named Turbo Force because it will take you into overdrive. Turbo Force at InfoWarsLife.com.
How do you get people to not protect their own rights? The best form of censorship the state has realized for a long time is self-censorship. So go back to an era in the plantation South where you're a plantation owner and there's only 4 or 5 of you and there's hundreds or even thousands of slaves out in the field. How do you get them to not resist? How do you get them to not assert and seize their own liberty in the way those on the Amistad ship did that led to the famous Supreme Court case of 1840 saying born free, always free? You create a mindset where people censor themselves, where people refuse to assert their own rights, where people forfeit their own liberties. Look at, for example, by contrast, what happens when the institutional corrupt actors in the Spygate scandal do something bad and get caught doing something bad. They have the whole system to come to their defense. A guy like Andrew McCabe asked for people to participate in raising funds for him, and he raises nearly $1 million in a single night. How is that happening? Because those are people asserting their particular version of a reality, but they're willing to protect their political group, whereas the goal is to get those people who are outside the system, against the system, to not speak on their own behalf, to not advocate on their own behalf, to forfeit their own liberties. That is the ultimate game of censorship, is self-censorship. Indeed, our entire prison system is built on a panopticon model that is entirely designed to get prisoners to not express themselves, because how? To think they're always being watched. If you're always being watched, then you're afraid to express yourself, afraid to be yourself. That is where the war on the First Amendment and big tech collide and collude, and the only real collusion that's occurring. What's happening is to get you, the ordinary person, to believe you can't express yourself, you can't be supporting someone that you like, you can't choose your own views, you can't choose your own news, you have to go with what they tell you. Why and how? Because if you don't, maybe something bad will happen to you. Because don't worry, the Google is sitting there in your home or your phone or the Nest or the rest, and it's listening to you all the time. Your computer is watching you. Your phone is listening in at any given moment. The goal is to censor, shame, and control your speech and idea. And the second part of that is to get you to feel defeated. In other words, how do you get people to feel that they can't participate, to feel that they can't succeed? They try to induce a mindset, that plantation mindset, to where you think you can't be part of something different. You can't change things. You better not support someone like Alex Jones or InfoWars or other people, because if you do, something bad will happen. So they get you to forfeit your own liberties. They get you to forfeit your own rights, because they know one guy standing in front of a tank, like is made famous in China, can change the world. They know you as part of the InfoWars community help change the world. They need you to not help change the world. They need you to stop trying to change the world. They need to induce you and seduce you into thinking, oh, geez, I can't do it. I can't make a difference. So that I'm ultimately an underclass, a permanent underclass with no power, with no liberties, completely dependent upon the state for my protection. That is, in fact, the whole logic and part of various liberal strategies and ideologies, is to have a victim mindset and mentality so that people don't recognize their own power, don't recognize their own liberty, don't recognize their own freedom. In the end, the First Amendment right of speech, the First Amendment right of expression, doesn't mean anything if you don't express it and don't support those who do express it. What is an independent press without your participation and support of it? What is independent speech if you aren't a person out there making that independent speech and supporting those who do? That is why the goal is to suppress the First Amendment, in part through law, by getting the Supreme Court to change the law, as Justice Thomas and other justices have now suggested. Secondly, to do things like the Roger Stone case, where you suppress and censor speech with gag orders. But ultimately, it can only be successful if it induces ordinary, everyday people to not partake and participate in those institutions that are advocates for liberty. So to get you to no longer watch, review, see, help, share the ideas that are important to you, the news and the views that are important to you, so that you choose what the news and views are about. The First Amendment isn't just about the right to speak or the right to express. The First Amendment is your right to listen, your right to choose, your right to decide. That's you, not anybody else. That's why the First Amendment matters, and only you can impact them.
So they're literally trying to get us to abandon our birthright. And I was about to chime in and say panopticon Foucault, and you just hit it there. It's so great when somebody knows history. This is your birthright being stolen, folks.
Exactly. And only you can protect it, only you can defend it, only you can assert it. So do so. Let them hear you loud and clear in everything you do, and who you support, and who you're part of, and the community you choose to be part of, because you get to choose your news, you get to choose your views, and the birthright is only as powerful as you choose to make it. That's whose hands the First Amendment is ultimately in. There is a reason why Alex Jones and InfoWars was the primary target of those who want to suppress and censor speech in the United States. It's because you, and not because of Alex. Alex is one man, one person. It's because of you, the audience, your participation with InfoWars, your support of InfoWars, your sharing and spreading the news of InfoWars, that was such a threat. You were able to reboot and recreate the American dream in the way it was written in. Make the words of the Constitution and the First Amendment read in the words they were written in. Written by people like my great-grandfather many years ago, who was part of the Bill of Rights movement in Rhode Island back in the late 1700s. That is your right and your liberty. You established it, and that's why they're so scared of you. They're scared of you, the audience. They're scared of what you're going to do. Are you going to continue to support and help and establish and share the InfoWars ideas, your news, your views, the way you choose? Or are you going to go gently into the night, go quietly against the fright, go into a state of fear, go into a state of submission, and forfeit the liberties and freedoms that took 200 years to help create and establish in the first place? This choice is ultimately about you. You have more power than anybody realizes. There's a place called the Einstein Institute up in Boston, where a bunch of ex-defense intelligence and other people help train and teach people in other countries how to assert and protect their liberties. And one of the points they make is that there's really, while people talk about 4 pillars of power, there's really a 5th hidden pillar of power. And what is that 5th hidden pillar of power? Public perception, public belief, public participation. It's the ordinary person who really has the power. That one guy can stand in front of the tank in China and revolutionize the world in such an emotive effect because it recognizes that that tank and all that army doesn't have nearly as much power as the ordinary person asserting theirs. They can't get you to do something unless they coerce or control the way you think about it. That's why they feel so threatened by you, the audience, with Alex Jones and InfoWars. That's why there's the lawfare against them. That's why there's this coordinated strategy in both the public space, the legal space, even Hollywood. You have Hollywood writing long one-season scripts designed to defame and libel who Alex Jones is. Why? Because they're scared of you. They're scared of your power to make a difference, your power to change the world, because you already have proven you can, you already proven you have. So continue to be involved, continue to express yourself, continue to support those causes, those places, those people who give your right to expression, your right to choose your news and your views, because that is your power. The First Amendment sits solely in your hands. What happens to it is up to you. This is Robert Barnes for InfoWars, sitting in for Alex Jones. We'll be right back, continuing to lead the second American revolution that protects your rights and your liberties, which ultimately sits in your hands.
Now, I'm so excited about this because they taste so good, they're so great, they're such high quality. And I can't wait to hear them try to demonize that we're selling high quality infused protein bars. We went to, again, 3 of the top manufacturers in the country. We said we want to up the protein level, up the quality, even though you're already top of the line, and we're going to lower the price. At regular price in the packs of 12, it's $3. 15 grams of protein and so much more. These are super high quality, no fillers, nothing. But under the discount we've got going, it's 40% off when you get 2 boxes instead of 25% off. It's like $2.40. Everybody's like running around the office since these came in about 2 weeks ago. We're launching them today, and they're like, this is the best protein bar I've ever tasted. They taste better than candy bars. Your body's like, this is what I want, this is what I need. This is how you fund the InfoWar. Instead of going and paying more for bars that aren't even as good in many cases, at Whole Foods or wherever, you get the highest quality, you get a discount, and you fund the resistance. It's a total 360 win. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. We did focus groups for the first time ever. I mean, this is what everybody said was their favorite. Tastes great, super healthy, super amazing. Get your InfoWars Life protein bars today at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Now the video will say protein and food is evil in the snake oil. But you get 12 bars, 15 grams of protein in each one. Vanilla coconut is my favorite. We have the other right here as well. InfoWars Live protein bar, peanut butter and chocolate. This is a high-end protein bar of the highest quality at InfoWarsLife.com for about half the price of major competitors, and then your funding supports the InfoWar, a total 360 win.